We have the pleasure of hearing from Rebekah Powell, who is the Director of Strategy and Impact for Methodist Children's Home. MCH provides foster care, residential, and case management services across Texas and New Mexico. Rebekah actually led the research, selection, design, and implementation of Bonterra Impact Management for MCH and oversees the agency's continuous quality improvement process, incorporating quality improvement into every program and department. Rebekah received a Master's of Business Administration in Strategic Management in 2013 from the University of North Texas and is certified in ProSci Organizational Change Management. So thank you so much, Rebekah, for joining us this afternoon. I'm excited for today's presentation, and I'm going to go ahead and pass it to you to go ahead and get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley. And thank you all so much for joining us today. I am going to share my screen and we'll jump into the presentation. So as Ashley mentioned, my name is Rebekah Powell, and I'm the Director of Strategy and Impact with Methodist Children's Home. And today we're going to talk about continuous quality improvement, or CQI, and how to leverage technology when building a quality CQI process to help increase staff capacity and reduce burnout. To give you a bit of an overview of what this session will look like, I'll walk you through best practices in building and sustaining a culture of continuous improvement. We'll talk through how MCH has utilized Bonterra's impact management software to enhance our CQI process. And then we'll wrap up by reviewing the most important factors to consider when building staff capacity, as well as how that ties into an effective CQI plan. So I'd like to talk through a few definitions with you before we dive into some of those specifics. The first definition I wanted to talk through is staff capacity. So today when I talk about staff capacity, I'm referring to the ability of your staff to handle their workload effectively without feeling overwhelmed. When looking to increase staff capacity, there are several important factors to consider to ensure that the strategies you implement are effective and sustainable. So as you can see on the screen, these are some factors to consider. I'm going to dive deeper into each of these, and then we'll move through a couple more definitions and then talk through some specific examples. A key piece of the first one you see there is workload assessment. So a key piece of workload assessment is to analyze the current workload by evaluating the current tasks and responsibilities of your staff to identify any imbalances or areas where individuals are overwhelmed. By then identifying any bottlenecks, you can pinpoint processes or tasks that are causing delays and assess whether they can be streamlined or reassigned. Another consideration you want to take into account is resource allocation. This is when you take a look at the efficiency of resources to ensure they're allocated where they're needed most. So this might mean redistributing tasks or providing additional support in high demand areas. When you're considering staff training and development, continuous learning and leadership training are two important factors. So continuous learning provides regular training and professional development opportunities to enhance the skills of your staff. And then leadership training invests in leadership development to ensure that managers can effectively support and guide their teams. Technology integration is another one, and process improvement those are two factors that we're going to focus on in our session today. Implementing automation tools to handle repetitive tasks frees your staff up to focus more on strategic activities. And then as a part of process improvement, reviewing and optimizing existing workflows helps eliminate inefficiencies and reduce unnecessary steps. Continuing down this list, we have employee engagement, and that consists of work-life balance and wellness programs. When you're promoting policies that support a healthy work-life balance, such as flexible working hours or remote work options, that helps to ensure staff capacity. Likewise, it's important to implement programs that support physical and mental well-being of your staff. Next, we have communication and feedback, and that fosters an environment where staff feel comfortable sharing their ideas and concerns. Providing regular feedback and recognizing the contributions of your staff will help keep them motivated and engaged. Capacity planning also helps you anticipate future needs and plan accordingly to ensure that your team can handle upcoming projects and demands. And then organizational impact is a huge component of enhancing staff capacity. When you build a culture that supports continuous improvement and encourages innovation, it increases efficiencies and reduces burnout. Empowering staff to take initiative and make decisions within their roles can increase their capacity to handle more responsibilities. And then lastly, we have monitoring and evaluation. That helps with monitoring staff capacity over time. You can establish key performance indicators or outcomes to monitor progress and evaluate the effectiveness of capacity building initiatives, and that helps you keep a pulse on where you're at. You can conduct regular reviews of capacity and make adjustments as needed based on performance data and feedback, and that helps in enhancing staff capacity. So increasing staff capacity is a multifaceted process, and it requires careful planning and ongoing management. By considering these factors, you can create a sustainable strategy that enhances the efficiency and effectiveness of your teams, and it ultimately leads to improved outcomes for your organization. So throughout this webinar, we are going to take a few polls. I like to get your feedback as we go along. So we're going to use Slido to do that. So we're going to jump into our first poll. I'd like to get your feedback around staff capacity challenges at your agency. So as you heard some of those key considerations, I wanted you to think about, as you implement those considerations, what are the challenges that you face to try to enhance staff capacity? So please either scan the QR code on the screen, you can enter the ID number at slido.com, or you can go to the website that Ashley included in the chat. Any of those three options are going to take you to our first poll. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to get there, and then to also answer the questions. So once you're there, please enter one challenge your agency encounters when working to increase staff capacity.
Looks like funding is a big one.
Yes, funding is absolutely high on the list. That makes a lot of sense. With nonprofit social good organizations, funding drives so much.
Yeah.
We'll give just another minute here. We'll see several more. Communication is also huge. Yeah, communication affects a lot. It can be challenging depending on the location or where staff are at, the ways that staff are connected. Too many priorities and not enough time. I know this is really challenging, especially when it comes to, as we talk through continuous quality improvement, it can be hard to set aside the time to prioritize that and prioritize those things that can increase capacity. High caseloads, being understaffed, those are a couple other commonalities. All right, awesome. I appreciate your participation in the polls. We'll continue this throughout our session today to hear from you guys. So we all encounter various challenges, and like we see on this poll, some definitely stand out as common themes across the agency. You can take the considerations that we just talked through into account, and those things can help combat some of these challenges. So today we're going to dive into technology integration and CQI as tools for increasing staff capacity. So as you listen to how we use technology integration and continuous quality improvement, I'd love for you to keep in mind, how can you utilize these things to help with funding, to help with too many priorities, help with communication, high caseload, and being understaffed. A lot of these tools can actually help to combat some of these issues. And when we're able to prioritize things like CQI or technology integration, we start to see our agencies turn around and be able to just have more resources and more time. Although I don't think we will ever have enough time for all of it, right? All right, I'm going to jump back over to the PowerPoint. And we're going to jump into our next definition, which is burnout. So burnout can severely impact nonprofit organizations by reducing productivity, increasing staff turnover, and negatively affecting the overall morale of the team. Burnout is defined as a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. Key factors include heavy workload, lack of support, and insufficient resources. So let's talk through best practices for preventing burnout. First is workload management. Ensuring that workloads are reasonable and balanced helps with avoiding overloading employees with excessive tasks. And then setting clear expectations and goals ensures that employees have clear job descriptions and understand their responsibilities. You can set realistic and achievable goals, which helps prevent employees feeling overwhelmed. The good news is that many of the factors that contribute to building staff capacity also contribute to reducing burnout. So when you implement some of these factors and considerations, you're able to address both issues a lot of times at the same time. So a supportive work environment and work-life balance are two factors that overlap amongst others. Open communication fosters a culture where employees feel comfortable discussing their workload and any stressors are accepted and supported. You can hold regular one-on-one meetings to discuss workloads, progress, and any challenges employees might be facing, and that also provides invaluable support. Providing flexible working hours, remote work options, and encouraging time off also helps employees manage their personal and professional lives better. Implementing programs that recognize and reward employees for their hard work and achievements helps employees feel valued and appreciated. And then providing opportunities for professional growth and development can also help employees feel more engaged and valued. You can offer wellness programs that promote physical health, such as gym membership, health screenings, or yoga classes, as well as providing access to mental health resources, such as counseling services, stress management workshops, or employee assistant programs. And those are all ways to reduce burnout in the workplace. And then we have empowering employees. When you empower employees to make decisions and have control over their work, as well as supporting employees in taking initiative and being proactive in their roles, that can increase job satisfaction and reduce stress. Organizing team building activities fosters a sense of community and support among employees and encourages peer support and collaboration, which can help employees feel less isolated. And then again, we have organizational culture. This also really impacts burnout. And then monitoring and feedback is another factor as well that overlaps with considerations for increasing staff capacity. Building a positive and inclusive organizational culture shows employees that their well-being is valued, and then maintaining transparency in organizational changes and decisions builds trust and reduces uncertainty. Conducting regular employee surveys is one way to monitor and gather feedback to gauge satisfaction and identifying potential issues early. Actively listening to employee feedback and making necessary changes to address their concerns builds trust and reduces burnout. And then finally, training leaders and managers to recognize signs of burnouts and to provide support and resources to their teams builds a strong and supportive work environment, and that helps to combat employee burnout. Preventing burnout requires a comprehensive approach that addresses various aspects of the work environment and employee experience. By implementing these strategies, organizations can create a supportive and sustainable work environment that promotes employee well-being and productivity. So let's take another poll. This time we're going to look at staff burnout. So you can, again, either scan the QR code, go to slido.com and enter the ID number, or go to the website in the chat. Once you're there, please rate how effective you feel your organization is at preventing staff burnout. And this is going to be on a scale from 1 to 5. 1 would be not effective, that you feel like your organization just isn't there yet and has a lot that places you can improve on. And then 5 is extremely effective, that you feel like your organization is really mindful and incorporates a lot of these tools into reducing burnout. So I'll give you a minute to do that. All right, it looks like we're right in the middle so far. So we're got some areas for improvement, but then also are doing a good job to work on this and to stay mindful of it. So today we're going to talk about ways that you can actually use CQI to help reduce burnout and how you can use CQI or quality improvement to increase staff capacity as well. So I'm going to jump back over to the slide and we'll talk more about continuous improvement. So this is our last definition, and then we're going to dive further into CQI. So continuous quality improvement is a management system that seeks incremental improvement over time, or you can also use breakthrough improvement all at once. CQI can be used to improve processes in the work environment, and it can also help organizations achieve and maintain regulatory compliance. So on the screen here, you see some best practices for incorporating continuous quality improvement into your agency culture. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into each of these best practices. Sustaining a culture of quality improvement requires continuous effort, and it also does require a strategic approach that involves everyone in the organization. So earlier we saw in the poll where setting aside time can be really challenging, and I see this a lot at our organization as well. We get in the day-to-day, we have emergencies come up. Our priority is serving our clients and building a strong organization. And when that happens, sometimes CQI gets put on the back burner. What happens though in that is that we can sometimes end up in a more of a survival mode instead of being able to get on the front end of things and improve our processes. And so when we're able to incorporate and prioritize these best practices, that's how we can start to change things around to be able to improve things over time and kind of mitigate some of those challenges that come up when we end up in survival mode. So first is leadership. Leadership must champion and model continuous improvement. When leadership are engaged in the process, the agency is more likely to adopt this as a practice, and it becomes ingrained in the culture. Leaders should be visibly supporting quality improvement initiatives and demonstrate their commitment through actions and communication. Next, it's to engage staff at all levels in quality improvement efforts. When you're encouraging staff participation in identifying areas for improvement and in developing solution, staff feel more empowered and they're able to take ownership of quality improvement initiatives by when they have the autonomy and resources needed to make changes. That also helps to create buy-in, which then helps with prioritizing the improvement efforts over time. Providing ongoing training helps to develop skills and knowledge around continuous improvement. Teams need to understand the importance of continuous improvement in order to be willing to create space for the process. So many times what we see, a low performing quality improvement process can be attributed to a lack of understanding of the benefits and efficiencies that come from continuous improvement. So when we are continuously improving processes, then we do start to see efficiencies and things begin to take less and less time, where we can then put our time to more important things within the agency. You can focus on developing both technical skills and soft skills that support quality improvement, such as problem solving, teamwork, and communication. And then when you establish key performance indicators or outcomes to measure the effectiveness of quality improvement efforts and to guide decision-making, you can regularly analyze data to identify trends, measure progress, and inform future improvement efforts. And that helps ensure progress is being made. It also helps to pinpoint areas of inefficiencies to better guide CQI practices. And then next, developing and implementing standardized procedures and processes that support consistent quality improvement practices keep CQI processes streamlined and focused across the agency. Thorough documentation of quality improvement projects, including goals, plans, actions, and outcomes, keeps staff focused as they move through the CQI process. That also helps staff and leadership see the benefits of CQI, because you can clearly see the process over time and you can see the improvement and the efficiencies that are happening from the investment in the CQI process. Finally, creating mechanisms for regular feedback and implementing changes based on feedback helps to create a pattern for improvement, and it helps staff see the benefit of the way they do the work that they're doing to identify and problem solve important areas. When you conduct regular reviews of quality improvement initiatives, that is a way to assess their impact and their effectiveness. It's important to be willing to adjust strategies and approaches based on feedback and evaluation results to continuously improve the quality improvement processes itself. So sustaining a culture of quality improvement requires a deliberate and consistent effort that involves leadership, employee engagement, continuous training, and a focus on data-driven decision-making. By implementing these best practices, organizations can create an environment where quality improvement is an integral part of the organizational culture, leading to sustained success and enhanced incomes. These next are several continuous improvement methodologies. There are several methodologies, but these are some of the main ones. And these are structured approaches aimed at enhancing processes, products, or services. The methodologies emphasize iterative incremental changes, and they involve the entire organization in the improvement efforts. So I'm going to go a little bit into each of these, just kind of defining these, and then we're going to talk through a couple of these models and give you some examples of how these models are used. So first is plan, do, study, act. In this cycle, plan is where you're identifying an area for improvement and you're developing a plan to address it. Then you implement the plan on a small scale. You're then evaluating the results of the implementation to see if the desired outcome was achieved. And then if that desired outcome was achieved and it was successful, you would implement the plan on a larger scale. If it's not successful, you refine the plan and then you continue the cycle until you get to a successful place. The second methodology is lean, and this focuses on maximizing value while minimizing waste. Lean principles aim to create more value for customers with fewer resources. So some of the tools and techniques used with lean are value stream mapping. This visualizes the flow of materials and information to identify waste. And then we have 5S, which stands for sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. This organizes the workplace for efficiencies and effectiveness. And then the last tool is Kaizen, and that's continuous incremental improvement involving all employees. The third methodology is Six Sigma. This aims to improve the quality of process outputs by identifying and removing causes of defects and minimizing variability. This uses the DMAIC process, where D stands for define. You define the problem and project goals. Then you measure key aspects of the current process. You analyze data to identify root causes of defects. You improve the process by eliminating defects, and you control future process performance to sustain improvement. The fourth methodology is total quality management. This focuses on long-term success through customer satisfaction, where all members of the organization participate in improving processes, products, services, and culture. So the principles here are being customer focused. You understand and you look at meeting the customer needs. Then you're involving all employees in the improvement process. You're managing activities as processes. You're aligning organizational processes with strategic goals, emphasizing regular and systematic improvements, and using data to inform decisions. The fifth methodology is Kaizen. This is a part of Lean, but it can also be used on its own as a continuous quality improvement methodology. This focuses on continuous small improvements involving everyone. The principles here are making small incremental changes over time. You're encouraging suggestions and participation from all employees who are involved in the process improvement. And then you standardize best practices and improvement based on those suggestions and participation and feedback. The next one is theory of constraints. This focuses on identifying and addressing the most significant limiting factors that stand in the way of achieving a goal. So the process of this one is determining the process's bottlenecks. So you're identifying the constraints, and then you're maximizing the output of the constraint. You align all other processes to support the constraint. You increase the capacity of the constraint, and then once the constraint is broken, you move on to the next one. The seventh methodology we'll talk about is Agile. This originated in software development, and it focuses on iterative development where requirements and solutions evolve through collaboration. The principles used here are that the work is divided into small manageable units called sprints. Continuous engagement with customers for feedback is utilized, and then adaptation to changes is embraced, and teams are empowered to make decisions. The eighth one is benchmarking. This compares an organization's processes and performance metrics to industry best or best practices from other industries. So the types of benchmarking are internal benchmarking. That's comparing practices with different departments or units of the same organization. Competitive benchmarking, which is comparing practices with direct competitors. Functional benchmarking, which is comparing with similar functions in different organizations, and then generic benchmarking, which is comparing with unrelated industries to find innovative practices. And then the last methodology we'll talk about is policy deployment. That's aligning the organization's strategic goals with its operations and resources. The process you use with policy development is you define long-term goals and visions, and then you break down goals into specific objectives and deploy them throughout the organization, and then implement plans and regularly review progress. So these are just some of the continuous improvement methodologies. These are some of the most standard ones, and they offer structured approaches to enhancing processes, reducing waste, and increasing efficiencies. When you use those standardized processes, again, you're able to pinpoint the successes. You're able to better see where your efficiencies are coming from and the impact that your continuous quality improvement process is having on your overall agency impact. By understanding and applying these methodologies, you can create a culture of continuous improvement that leads to sustained success and higher performance. So next, I'd like to show you an example of how an award-winning magician utilized lean principles to improve his act. The first 8 minutes are a magic show. So if I have lost you so far, come on back, have some fun, and watch a magic show. And then he'll explain his process that he used to improve his act. After the video, I'll talk through how we use PDSA cycle at Methodist Children's Home as our main quality improvement process.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All this money, so little time. Here we go. Hi, my name's Stuart McDonald, and this is my TED Talk. Thank you very much for coming out to just see me. This is great. What I'd like to tell you is I want to explain how I developed this act, and the title of it is How I Fooled Penn and Teller Using Lean Principles and Continuous Improvement. It's true. It's true. These are some of the principles that I use. I don't have a lot of time to get in depth in all of them, but we're going to start with the first one, which is direct observation. Now, direct observation is very important because if you have a problem, you have to go to where the work is being done, observe it, and then you can figure out how to lean the process out, solve problems. Now, I have a lone wolf pictured here behind me because we've all had lone wolves in our workplace who solve the problem all by themselves, but they forget about all the people that are upstream, and they forget all the people that are downstream of the problem. So when they solve the problem, no one is clear how they solve the problem, and in most cases, they create more problems, both upstream and downstream, because they solved it without getting the process partners together. Now, as magicians, the reason why you don't see a lot of good magicians is because we are lone wolves. We are not supposed to tell our secrets. So I decided to make my act an open source. I opened it up to my audience, my friends, my colleagues, and I developed a team. And some of these are engineers. Some of these people are actually from Broadway, Broadway production designer, magicians, neighbors, anybody that would watch my act. Now, the funny thing is that nobody wants to criticize a performer because our egos are so fragile. So I couldn't ask somebody, did you like my act? And if I said that, I always get the answer, it was great. But I needed to change the question because I needed more answers. I needed to get to the problem of the act because it really wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. So I changed the question to, what bothered you? And that really made a big difference because by saying what bothered you, me as an entertainer, and when I'm up on stage, I don't want to bother you, I want to entertain you. So they started flooding me with ideas, and as these ideas started coming, I started using process mapping to put my act together on my living room wall for all my friends to see. I called it offline rehearsal editing. What I would do is I'd take a trick or an idea and I'd put it over here, and then I'd take one and put it over there, and I would look at it, and before committing the act to memory, I would say, yeah, I think that'll work. And then once I got something to the point where it was either good for an audience test or good for a test in front of some of my colleagues online, I showed the video to them, and that led me to 5 Why, because all they kept on asking me was, why? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? It doesn't make any sense, because we're way beyond what bothered you now. Now they get it. They understand, and the criticizing, it wasn't critical anymore. It was now director, actor, and it really made a big difference. Because if you're not familiar with 5 Why, if you ask the question 5 Why, five times the question why, you get to the root of the problem that you're looking for by the time you ask the 5th why. Why is the mirror here? Why is the mirror covered? Why is that table here? Why are you here? Who are you? Where are we? And I found out that I was missing 3 major elements: time, place, and character. And once we figured that out, the act got noticed, and it started developing. At first, the act had an oval mirror, and then I changed the oval mirror to a vanity, and you can see I have a brown suit there. Then the brown suit went to like a vaudevillian character, and then I took the mirror off of the table and I put it on the floor. And once that happened, the producers of Penn and Teller got a hold of me, and they said, we want to put you on the show. And I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to be on national television with my all-time favorite magicians, Penn and Teller, and I have to fool them. And I asked myself the question, can I fool them? And I said, no, I couldn't fool them. So I had this radical idea of continuous improvement. 30 days prior to being on their TV show, I was going to videotape my act from every conceivable angle, and I was going to do it 100 times in 30 days. And I did. Now, the object of these videotapings was to improve one thing after each video session. So at the end of 30 days, my act would be 100 times better than it was 30 days before. And boy, did it work. Because the very first time I performed in front of Penn and Teller was the very first time I performed this act live in front of an audience. I did it in front of a studio audience, in a contest, on television, and this is the result of all of those YouTube videos that I sent out to everybody. And yep, I fooled Penn and Teller. Michigan boy fooled Penn and Teller. Thank you. So I want to leave you with this. Use continuous improvement and lean principles with anything that you anything you care to do really well. Whether it's magic, whether it's business, family, organizing your wood shop, it doesn't matter. Because if you do that, unintentional benefits will follow you. My unintentional benefit was not to be on Penn and Teller. It was to be in the World Championships of Magic. And you see the results here. So use these principles. They will work. Thank you.
All right. Hopefully you enjoyed the magic show. As you can see, a CQI process doesn't have to be a huge overhaul of your agency. So just like he took just one little piece at a time, one improvement at a time, it had significant results. You can make small incremental changes over time, and that leads to larger impacts. So at MCH, our CQI process exists to promote organizational and program excellence. It encourages an environment of open discussion, innovation, and continuous learning. We utilize a variety of methods for CQI, but PDSA, or Plan, Do, Study, Act, is one of them. We use the PDSA cycle as a part of our quarterly CQI cycle. So on a quarterly basis, what we do is we collect and report on outcomes, and then we hold quarterly CQI meetings, which consist of a variety of staff across levels and departments. These committees set aside intentional time to evaluate the data, noting any themes or trends, and then determining action steps to take to improve those outcomes. Each quarter, we work to make improvements to processes, plans, and services, which then increases the impact of our agency. Developing our CQI process has definitely been an ongoing effort for our agency over the years. As I noted before, it's not only important to work to improve your services, but it's also important to improve your CQI process over time. So the model that you see here is the way that we've done that at MCH. We've worked to develop how we track key performance indicators or outcomes, and are working to grow from a data exploring organization to a data transformed organization. When working to increase impact, it's important to take a look at how you are utilizing data to make decisions. So the first level that you see here on the data maturity model is about exploring the data that you have. So when you're at this level, you recognize the importance of collecting data, but you need to incorporate best practices to enhance data management. This usually results in teams creating their own processes for utilizing data, and decisions are often made with little or no data consideration. And that can make it challenging to learn from changes that are made. It also does create a lot of inefficiencies. The second level of the model is where your organization becomes data informed. Leadership begins to explore data-driven tools and processes for improvement. And this is when the organization begins to invest in data collection, management, and best practices. Success metrics for changes begin to become the norm, as well as analyzing outcomes and trainings. And this is when you start to see some efficiencies happen. At the next level, you become data-driven, and that's where the true impact starts to grow. Every initiative aims to drive impact through data-driven decision-making. Teams begin to understand how to utilizing key performance indicators can optimize best practices and outcomes, and accurate and reliable data is readily available and utilized for planning and carrying out changes. And then the last level is becoming data transformed, and that's where data and continuous improvement become a part of the organization's culture. There's a culture of sharing data throughout the organization, which means that everyone is looking at the same numbers and the same dashboards, and new staff quickly learn what it means to use data effectively as a part of the onboarding process. Time and resources are invested in continuing the process of utilizing data to make data-driven decisions, and the efficiencies seen from that are worth the time and resources invested in this process. So determining where you are in your data maturity journey is a key step to figuring out what you have to do next. So on the screen, you can see a few questions to ask yourself. One, how do you currently measure the success of projects? Number two, are data and analytics easily accessible to teams? Third, how does your agency connect changes to organizational performance? Fourth, how does your organization experiment with new ideas? And then lastly, does your organization effectively use both qualitative and quantitative data for analysis? All right, so let's take another poll. I'd like to hear from you about where you feel your organization is in your data maturity journey. So again, please either scan the QR code, enter the ID at slido.com, or go to the link that Ashley put in the chat. And on this poll, indicate which level you feel your organization is at today. So I'll give you a minute to do that. So it looks like we have lots that are at data informed and data driven, some that are at data exploring. And we've got some work to do on data transformed. And data transformed is definitely takes quite a bit of work to get to that place for sure. Okay, so it looks like a lot at data driven and data informed. We're going back and forth to tie between the two of those. All right, thanks for participating in that. We're going to jump back over to the PowerPoint. All right, so I'm going to share a little bit about how we have used Bonterra Impact Management to move us through that data maturity model, and just the work that we're actually currently doing now to work on being more intentional about being data-driven and move to a data-transformed place. So at MCH, we've utilized Bonterra Impact Management as our platform for helping us move to a data-transformed state within our CQI framework. We've also utilized it as a tool for implementing an agency-wide CQI structure with common procedures and processes for collecting and analyzing data. We have been able to build out a variety of reports within the system, which are available in real time across the agency. This gives staff and leadership the opportunity to track key metrics, which have the highest impact on program results. The reporting tools within Bonterra's Impact Management allow you to easily pull any data that is being input into the system. And because we can make changes to documentation so easily, we're able to build in data collection tools as we make adjustments based on our CQI findings. We can then build reports to track and evaluate those changes over time. So I know funding and time can both be really significant variables or factors to consider with implementing a CQI process. We have found that the more efficient we get at collecting data and reporting data out, the less time and resources are having to be spent in these areas, especially with making changes to our system with Bonterra Impact Management, and building out some of those reports within the system. We've found easy ways to be able to do that, and definitely easy, cost-effective ways to make changes to the system, which has been really significant for us, and being able to build out a comprehensive CQI process across our agency. We also utilize results reporting, which is Bonterra's advanced reporting tool that allows for more powerful and customizable reports. This is where we're building out our quarterly CQI reports, which are used agency-wide to analyze for larger program outcomes. It allows us to set up automated reports, which can be available to staff on a daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis. And as we have begun our CQI reports, as we begun moving our CQI reports to this platform, it's decreased time that staff are spending pulling information from the system, and allows them to spend more time working with clients. Our agency is focused on maximizing Bonterra's impact management tools to move toward being a data-transformed organization. Though this is definitely a work in progress for us, we have made great strides in utilizing data to inform improvements and ensure data is easily accessible across our agency. So what you see here are the most important factors to consider when building staff capacity, which we talked through earlier. An effective CQI process can be utilized in a multitude of ways to build staff capacity. So let's take a look at an example of how you can utilize CQI to build staff capacity. In this example, a nonprofit organization noticed that staff were spending excessive time on administrative tasks, leading to decreased capacity for program delivery. As a part of the CQI initiative, they conducted a time assessment to identify the most time-consuming administrative tasks. Next, they developed standard operating procedures for common administrative processes to ensure consistency and efficiency. And then they implemented an automation tool to handle routine data entry tasks. Training was provided to staff on the new tool and standardized processes, and then staff were engaged in the design and implementation of the new system. And that gave them ownership of the changes. Key performance indicators were established and monitored the time saved and the impact on program delivery. The agency then conducted regular reviews and gathered feedback from staff to make continuous improvements. That initiative resulted in a 30% reduction in time spent on administrative tasks, allowing staff to focus more on program delivery and increasing overall organizational capacity. So one thing to remember with quality improvement is that it does absolutely take a lot of investment with time and resources on the front end, but when done well, it can greatly decrease the time that staff are spending on the back end on different tasks and processes, overall improving the process and then the time needed, and then in turn improving impact. Quality improvement is a powerful tool for building staff capacity. By focusing on systematic enhancements in processes, training, technology, and employee engagement, organizations can create a more efficient and effective work environment. This not only maximizes staff capacity, but also fosters a culture of continuous improvement, leading to sustained organizational success. So as we have worked to develop a culture of continuous quality improvement at MCH, we've learned several valuable lessons related to leadership, employee empowerment, and technology. It's important that leadership is brought into and supportive of a CQI process. Visible leadership who support data-driven decision-making and a structured CQI process play an invaluable role in staff buy-in. Leaders need to be encouraging staff participation in learning the CQI framework that you've adopted. And then leadership also plays a vital role in employees feeling empowered to participate in the CQI process. At MCH, we have developed a call to serve initiative, and this is a once-a-year campaign where staff learn about opportunities to be a part of CQI work groups and committees. They have an opportunity to express interest in serving, and then committee leaders work with staff to onboard and train them. This allows a rotation of staff who are involved in our quarterly CQI committees, and it increases exposure and participation across the agency. We are also committed to empowering diverse staff participation and open dialogue in our meetings. This allows space for new ideas and thoughts, which contributes to overall agency impact. We recognize that ideas come from all over the agency, and we utilize our CQI process as a way to gather, address, and follow up on ideas for improvements. So MCH has grown significantly in the ways that we've utilized technology to gather, analyze, and report on data over the last several years. Our partnership with Bonterra has allowed us to incorporate creative solutions to ensure data integrity and develop our CQI process. We have learned that clear workflows for data collection, automating reports, and keeping reports concise and easy to understand contribute greatly to the overall success of our CQI process. So today we talked through best practices for increasing staff capacity, reducing burnout, and incorporating CQI into your agency's culture. Now more than ever, data-driven decision-making is vital to the overall health and well-being of our organizations. I think we have 2 minutes left for a Q&A, so I'm going to pass it over to Ashley for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Rebekah, so much for your time this afternoon. This was wonderful. And I know I really enjoyed the magic show. And folks, we're going to give a couple seconds here for folks to drop their questions in the Q&A. But I want to say that if you are interested in learning more about some of our tools and services and how they can help with your organization's quality improvement and maybe time efficiency and staff burnout, reducing staff burnout. I'm going to launch one last poll here, and please feel free, like I said earlier, to fill that out, and I'll have one of my colleagues reach out to you later on after today's session. So want to give people a couple seconds here to drop their questions in, but a question I had, Rebekah, if we want to take the last minute to kind of share maybe some insights, tips, and tricks you might have for individuals who others on their team might be a little hesitant to make quality improvement, because, you know, sometimes we can get stuck in our ways, and I want to know what you have to say about that.
Yeah, I would say start small. Start with something even within a small team, whether that be what are some tasks that the team is spending the majority of their time on, and then work as a team or work in a group of 2 to 3 people to just look at what are some ways that or suggestions they have for improving those, and then create some standardization or processes around those pieces. And as you do that, you can then start to see how that increases efficiencies, it increases staff morale, it increases teamwork. And I think as you begin to see the benefit of the time that you put into that, then you can grow from there and you can build it across your agency.
Definitely start small. Don't overwhelm people, right? Awesome. Well, I think we are at time here, Rebekah. Thank you again so much for your time this afternoon. Such a wonderful and informed presentation. And I want to thank everyone for joining us as well. Thank you for your time and engagement this afternoon. And we definitely look forward to seeing you at our next session. Awesome. So thank you all. You have a great rest of your morning or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Bye-bye, everyone.